Games you liked better as a kid. Hey, I got one, Life. And I'm not talking about the board game of life, I'm talking about life. Yeah, as kids, all we wanted was to be older so that we could do all the things we wanted to do while failing to realize that we also got to do a lot of things we did not want to do. But of the things we did want to do, if you're like me, you did do, and at the top of the list, we have playing a boatload of video games. So now that you've played potentially a whole lifetime's worth of video games, your perspective has developed. And the question is, how do those games you loved as a kid hold up now to your more discerning adult self? There might be certain games that when you played them as a kid, you thought, oh my goodness, I've never played anything like it before. Even though that might not have been saying very much, considering at that point in your life, maybe you'd only ever played 3 games total. And since then, you've played a whole bunch of games that are not only like it, but all do it much better. So here's the thing about kids, they're very impressionable. So if a game has anything going for it, anything at all, we could latch onto it and that could be enough for us to enjoy that game. And the thing that it has going for it could simply just be the fact that it's a video game. We think, all right, I'm hitting buttons, things are happening on screen, life is good. Something else that a game could have had going for it that a kid might latch onto is something that I feel can actually be kind of a dirty trick. And I think some of you will agree with me. That would be games based on licenses. Now, don't get me wrong, there are absolutely some games based on licenses that are actually good. For example, if you were a fan of Goof Troop as a kid, boy, hot spicity dog were you treated to a great game. But unfortunately, not every game based on a license turned out great. But as a kid, if you were really into something, be it Power Rangers or Porky Pig, what have you, the fact that you had a game based on that might have been enough to jumpstart your jollies, and you remember the game fondly, whereas now you look back at that game as an adult and you go, wait a second, they pulled a fast one on me there. Kids can be very imaginative. In fact, quick little story for you. So when I was a kid, before I owned any video games, I distinctly remember this one afternoon where I was just daydreaming about the possibility of a monster truck video game. So what did I do? I came up with an idea. I took a toy monster truck that I had, and then I took a cable that I found lying around the house. What kind of cable? I don't remember. But I took one end of the cable and stuck it into the toy monster truck, and then I took the other end of the cable and I jammed it into the VCR slot of our TV. And the idea was that when I turned the TV on, I would have a monster truck video game on screen. Spoiler, it didn't work, but if it had, it could have been even the worst game ever. If it was a monster truck video game, it would have absolutely blown my bunions. I didn't have bunions as a kid. Actually, lucky enough, I don't have bunions now as an adult either. Because video games are able to ride off of novelty alone so much when we're kids, you could say that as kids, our standards were pretty low. And because video games could take advantage of these low standards so easily, it could be said that these games were practically fishing with dynamite back then. Plus, there were a lot of situations that just positioned video games perfectly for good times back then. Like a birthday party, you've just scarfed down a bunch of pizza, you're jacked up on sugar from the pinata that you just whacked the crap out of with a baseball bat, and then you go upstairs and some kid puts in a video game you've never seen before. Is it a good game? Maybe, but it may not even matter because you're having such a good time already that it's just like, all right, a video game. And while we're speaking about birthday parties, what about getting a video game as a gift for your birthday? Now, in some cases, maybe expectations build up, which lead to a big letdown with that game, but in a lot of cases, you're going to really want that game to be one that you enjoy. In fact, in some cases, you could have been so determined to enjoy a certain game as a kid that it could be considered downright stubborn. Ah, yes, we all know, and especially any parent knows, just how stubborn a kid can be. Say your kid doesn't want to wear shoes one day, well, them having to walk around barefoot suddenly just became your problem and not theirs. Or let's say a kid decides their favorite sound to make for the day is over and over. Good luck getting their mind off of that one. So perhaps in a way it's like justice that some of us, being the stubborn little turds we might have been, got stuck with some bad games that we forced ourselves to play much longer than we had to. Although ultimately, I guess the joke would be on the games because we enjoyed them anyways. There might also be some games that you rented as a kid that you enjoyed, and lucky for them, that's all they ever were, rentals, because if you had played them for any longer, maybe that shine would have worn off. For example, one such game for me was Chameleon Twist for Nintendo 64. I still think it's good now, but I thought it was incredible as a kid. I remember my cousin and I playing it, and we were like, this is so cool. You're a little chameleon, and you go around, and you get to do fun stuff with the chameleon's tongue. But now, it's fine, it's still good, but it just doesn't blow my mind like it did then. Okay, but here's an interesting one. Games that suffer from their reputation by way of relation to the series that they're in. So, for example, a Castlevania game that gets a bad rap because of how it's compared to other Castlevania games, or a Bomberman game, let's say Bomberman 64, another one that I rented all the time and enjoyed. Well, that game is considered not very good compared to other Bomberman games, but as a kid, I didn't know any better, and that game is fun enough on its own that I didn't care, and I thought it was a great fun game to play, especially in multiplayer. Okay, and then what about certain genres that you don't like as much now as you did as a kid? One of the biggest examples I see people bringing up is any of the games that take a long time to play through, because you're just like, with my limited free time, I'd rather not get into these super long games. I'm more into the quick pick up and play type of games. Long gone are the days where you could spend an entire Saturday burning every bush in The Legend of Zelda for NES, if you really wanted to. Alright, and that about does it for my thoughts. Oh, actually, you know what? One more game that I liked much better as a kid, Candyland, the board game. Oh, what a stupid luck-based game that is, but back in the day, we were always down for some Candyland. Okay, but with that, I want to hear which games you liked better as a kid, and of course, why. So, leave those comments down below, and I will see ya in the next video.
He's the retro bird, yeah, and he's talking about video games. He's the retro